Hello and welcome to Netflix versus Cinema. Happy New Year to everybody who listens. This is the podcast where we go to the cinema. We see a couple of things a week. We rate them out of 5. We stay at home on various streaming platforms. We see a couple of things each week, rate them out of 5, put them up against each other, and see where our money has been better spent this week. This is now 2025, and I'm getting flummoxed by the fact that I have to start up a new Excel spreadsheet for the films that we are going to review this year. And but anyway, joining me on this as usual are Sharon on the Isle of Wight.
Hello.
Shaun Harris on the Isle of Wight.
Hello there.
And our London correspondent, fresh from her triumphant reign of seeing 52 films in 52 weeks in the year 2024, it's Holly Neslane.
Hello.
Holly Neslane with cinema buddy Steph. Yes, I saw your both you and cinema buddy Steph having your triumphant sort of victory laps on Facebook of saying these are all the films we saw. Yay, it's amazing. And also, but Holly, I also have to commend you for your hard work to the podcast, where somebody was like, "Oh, can we see the reviews of any of the films you've seen?" And Chloe just went, "Go to the podcast."
Yes, you can.
It's like, only just go to, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I jumped in there. I was like, "Oh, here's actually the YouTube channel. You can search for each film that she's actually spoken about and see what she said." So yeah, well done for that. But it's in 2025. We've kicked off. We were just speaking about this, and Holly, you're planning to carry on this year the way you ended the last one, and you and Cinema Buddy Steph already have how many films do you say you have booked in already to see?
We're 2 down, and we have booked in 1 definitively, and we will be either seeing an additional 2 or 3 this weekend.
Okay, all right. So let's kick off there. Let's start off with what it is we've seen this week. So what have we seen actually since the last time, because it's been a while, and I think this is there's so much we've seen before Christmas and after tail end of 2024, beginning of 2025, that we have to talk about, that we might have to sort of push quite a bit of stuff over to next week and be playing catch up with ourselves for a couple of weeks. So let's talk about what we've seen. Holly, kick off. What have you seen since Christmas?
Since Christmas and since I saw you last, Better Man, Sonic 3, Nosferatu, We Live in Time, Mufasa,
Yeah.
Night Witch, and Craven the Hunter, all seen in
God.
cinema.
Craven. Forgot about that.
Oh yes, and
because Shaun and I reviewed Craven
Oh,
on
we
our last
reviewed
show.
it, yeah, that's
on
right,
our last
I
show of
remember.
2024. We reviewed,
Yes.
yeah.
And at home, there has been Dune Prophecy, Season 2 of The Diplomat, Missing You, and and Series 1 to 4 of Slow Horses.
Wow.
Well, you just binged them all.
I binged all of Slow Horses.
Okay, cool. In that case, okay, I'm gonna go with Dune Prophecy. That's one of the ones I'm definitely gonna talk about because I know that Sharon has also watched that. So Sharon, let's go on to you. What have you seen since Christmas, cinema and home?
So since Christmas, I have seen Sonic 3.
I still want to know the story about this. I want to know the story about how you ended up watching Sonic 3. I really want to know the story.
Nosferatu at the cinema, and at home. I don't think we've reviewed Blitz yet, but I saw Blitz just before Christmas, and I have seen Dune Prophecy.
Okay, cool. So, Blitz, Nosferatu, and what else did you say in this? Oh, Sonic 3, yeah. So,
Sonic
yeah,
3.
we're definitely talking about Sonic 3 on this show because I just want to know how the heck you saw that. how that came about. It's all right. Shaun.
Well,
Give me the laundry list.
I've been a bit lean, really. I got persuaded to go and see Mufasa with some of the family.
Yeah.
So wasn't waiting. And Nosferatu I've seen, and I watched a film when I was away because I was sort of a bit scatty over Christmas. I was at different places, different times, and I saw a film called Dogman, Luke Besson film called Dogman, 2020
Okay.
film on Amazon, and a bunch of other stuff on YouTube. And I've started about 3 series, which none of them have grabbed me as yet. So,
It's funny because the last show that we did of 2024, Sharon and I were talking about this. We were trying to say, okay, your worst shows of 2024. And because of the worst thing you've seen on streaming. And we were reflecting on the fact that because of the way we do the podcast, where you don't bring a show to the podcast unless you've seen the whole series. So
Yeah.
you have to see the whole series, and they say season 1 of this is blah blah blah, and that's what you have. Yeah, and I was like, oh, in that case, quite frankly, we can't really talk about the worst things we saw because, quite frankly, we just switch them off and we don't watch them.
That's it, really.
So I was like,
yeah.
oh yeah, that's a problem. I never actually thought about it that way. That we just go, nope, switch it off. Therefore, we didn't review it. So
I am very much into the YouTube at the moment. I've been watching, lots of I've been going through like Norman King, Stephen, Henry I, Stephen, William Rufus, Conqueror, and so because YouTube is absolutely really, really good for stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like a rabbit hole. I get like the stuff obviously because it's much like Amazon, because you watch this, you might like, and then I get all sorts. So I get stuff about Bournemouth, I get stuff about I think, oh, that's quite interesting. So really,
it's like 7 hours later, you're like, whoo!
Yeah, I know, yeah. But there's some great stuff on YouTube, really. Not, there's even full movies on YouTube as well. I've been watching. I watched a couple of westerns, which I can't even remember the name of, but because I watched sort of as I was, So, but yeah, there's about 3 series I started. I think one was The Rig, but I've been very scatty. I've been very much. So all the start of this year, I need to get myself sorted.
Okay, cool. Right, so let's kick off. I have decided, because of the amount of time that we have, I'm gonna pick 3 things. 3 things in cinema, 3 things at home, and I'm gonna kick off with what I would say is probably the big noise at the beginning of 2025, and that is Nosferatu. So Nosferatu, which I think the 3 of you have seen.
Yeah.
And I have not seen. So, Sharon, take us away and tell us about Nosferatu. I had a chance to see Nosferatu, but instead I decided to see We Live in Time instead.
Okay, Nosferatu is a vampire story in the traditional sort of vein. It's inspired by another work of fiction, but they couldn't use the same name for legal reasons. So we happen to have a young man who is employed he's in Germany, one of the cantons there, and he's employed by a slightly dodgy employer to go to a castle in Transylvania, but it's never named. It's the Carpathian Mountains, to visit a strange count there, Count Orlok, who wants to relocate to the said canton in Germany. And whilst the young man, not his name isn't Jonathan Harker, but it sounds like that, while he is in the Carpathian Mountains, he encounters this strange count, and odd things start happening. So he sort of has these memory lapses. He just feels like doesn't feel quite right in his body. He's becoming pale and wan and not very well. And he's had dire warnings from people who live by saying, oh, don't go there, and watch his shadow, and all sorts of dire warnings happen. He doesn't really take much notice of these because he's a man who has a mission to fulfill for his employer, because he wants to get ahead in the business. He has a young wife at home, and she has been plagued by nightmares since she was a young child. And one of these nightmares is she's not sure whether it's something she imagined or something it's just was real. But she had this recurring dream that when she was a young girl, she called out into the night for something to answer her, and something did. And ever since, it has plagued her dreams and her nightmares. And she feels that this presence is always there. And she hoped that her marriage would free her from this darkness in her past. But she's found that it has intensified. And when her husband's away, this presence has intensified yet again. So when he returns, a shadow of his former self, the sense of this impending doom and this approaching menace envelops her even more. And then we get to see what is behind this menace and the consequences of it when it is brought to this sort of fruition in this German town.
Cool. Very, very well done. Very well done. That of talking around it in a very legal sense, because this is a film that I think it was. Shaun, you have to remind me. I think was it F.W. Murnau.
Oh, no, Murnau. Yeah, it was a Murnau.
F.W. Murnau originally made
22, 23.
Yeah, originally made this Nosferatu, and it's like a classic of German cinema, made in the 20s. It's a silent movie. I think that the design of Nosferatu is iconic. from the 20s version, where I've never seen that film. I know the design of Nosferatu. That's how
you know
iconic
the
it is.
shadows. That
You know the shadow, you know the fingers, you know the ears, you know, you know all that kind of stuff. And this began life because they wanted to make a Dracula movie, but they didn't have the rights to Dracula, to Bram Stoker's Dracula. So they essentially went, fine, we're just going to rip the story off and change everything. But it has become
I think, Toes, that the Bram Stoker estate tried to get all the copies destroyed because they did actually.
I can imagine so.
They tried because they said it's basically,
it's Dracula.
It's Dracula.
It's Dracula as it is.
It's Dracula, but we've changed just about enough.
That's it, really. But the thing that I really, really liked about it, have any of you ever guys seen the original?
No.
No. There is the film that was inspired by the original, wasn't it, with William Dafoe in it?
Shadow of the Vampire.
Shadow of the Vampire, yeah.
That's as close as I've seen to the actual.
Okay, so this is like really, really good, and the characters in it, especially the mad one, look the spitting image. And Aaron Taylor Johnson, who plays
not Van Helsing.
He's like the skeptical. He's like the skeptical with there's no such thing. You know what I mean? No such thing as demonic possession. It's just fits and all stuff like that. Looks identical with the tash and everything and the beard. Identical to. And there's the bit there's a shot where the ship comes in, and he's sort of at the ship because he's like a ship magnet, and it's just like taken from the 1920 movie. It's just like 1922 movie. It's just like, and the castle is more or less, with like the street of the town, and it's all So I mean, it was really, really impressive. It's surprising, amazing. And
of course, in common with Shadow of the Vampire, it also has William Dafoe in it.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So.
Poor Willem Dafoe just going, Nosferatu, where? Quick, me!
There's also there was a 76 or 79 version, I think, as well, with Klaus Kinski, which I did see, and it was quite dull, that one. So
okay, cool. So Shaun, obviously, whenever we talk about historical movies, especially like historical war movies, you're all about the detail and everything like that. It sounds like on that level, almost as a historical artifact, this has made you happy. This film is
very much. What a great start to the year. Really, really,
cool.
really. I'm really totally impressed with this.
All right, Holly, fire away.
So well put together. It was atmospheric. It was beautifully done. Everything about it, the details, the scenery, all of it just hung together. It was a gorgeous film to watch. Though interestingly, we had some quite irritating people sitting behind us who at the end clearly didn't like it, and with combining expletives saying, what the did we just see? Like, did you not know what you were going to watch? Because this is not an innovative concept.
Well, the thing about it, right, is directed by Robert Eggers. Robert Eggers, who did The Witch, he did The Northman, and he did The Lighthouse. And I personally think that he would be quite happy to hear that was the reaction that somebody had to watch it.
I've actually liked all of those movies.
And we were actually talking afterwards about the fact that it is Willem Dafoe was very Willem Dafoe in it. He these days plays a fairly sort of variations on a theme character.
He's gone to that stage
in The Lighthouse.
Yeah.
And we thought this was remarkably reminiscent in some ways stylistically, and also of
Poor Things.
Yes, thank you. That one.
Yes.
I mean, we were really, really impressed by it.
All right.
It was, but there were other people like, don't see, it's the worst thing we've ever seen. I'm like, wow, you must have a really restricted cinema viewing, because I've seen some bad films and this is not one of them.
Again, I'd agree with everyone that you've said. So, the framing of the shot, the color palette, the costume, the silhouettes, even like that sort of stylized almost acting, where they get that close up and the whole horror faces, was just, I think it was just spot on. It was literally note perfect, I think, in more or less in every regard. The casting, they just had the right look, even the local villagers you meet at the beginning of the film, where they're all of a type, aren't they? But they were just it just worked.
I
I
think
just thought it was a great film. I saw this with my two brothers and my nephew, and we were like the ball and row in the cinema. And we each of us sort of obviously came from a different place. One of my brothers doesn't like horror at all. The other one sort of is more sort of popular. My nephew sort of, but yeah, we all of us came out going, "That was a good film. That was a good film."
I think it's
I just love
particularly
it. It's like
film lovers.
perfect family movie outing. Nosferatu.
Yeah. Well, it's a film lovers film as well,
Yes,
because I find the more films I see, and I was talking to my parents about this yesterday, that you start to appreciate more the subtleties of the making rather than just this is a really good story, wasn't this fun to watch? And it brought together all of the sort of details you'd like to see.
It's okay, Holly. You can say we've been doing this podcast long enough, and the more films you see, the snobbier you get. That is what's happened to us.
But you also appreciate the detail of things more because
that is code for snobby. That is code for you get snobby.
Remember, I love a bad shark film. This must never be forgotten. So I will watch appalling films.
and if you like, we like the vampire trope, but it's interesting that how it's sort of we've had the sexy vampires, haven't we? We've had like the teen vampires. We've had the gory, all fangs and blood vampires, and this is just that nod to that where it all started, really. That sort of early. There's nothing sexy about Warlock, even though there's this sort of frisson with the female character. There's nothing sexy about this vampire.
No, which is a contrast to Dracula.
Yes, who uses magnetic eyes and all this, like, oh, look into my
but the question is, does he have a cloak?
No.
He does not have a cloak.
He has like
he has a long
coat.
He has one of those old-fashioned coat type things, which look like they got a cloak, but it's not a flappy cloak. It's like
It's more like how the hussars used to wear their coats over one shoulder with like a braid, where they used like to sling it over their shoulder, and you had
You've
all
said
the
a couple of words
that
I'm going to be googling after this podcast. Yes, but yes.
Well, I think it was like that. It was like how you get the because I think the Carpathians if you look at their uniforms, they have these great coats, or they have like a fitted jacket.
Yeah, that's what.
And as a sign of like their sort of devil may care attitude, they'd often wear it, but slung over one shoulder, and you could see the cut of it, the frogging that looked like a uniform, that sort of uniform jacket, sort of with a nod to those old.
Oh, all right, cool. So, how many stars would we give this?
Yeah.
I don't know. This is like the start of the year, isn't it? And I mean, I should really, by all accounts.
Yeah, but we know, Shaun, we know we're in award season. So because of the weird thing and the award season and everything like that, a lot of these films, they'll come up in America to the end of the year. Here, they'll come out at the beginning of the year, where you might have forgotten about the end. So there will be very high rating stars. January should be a high rating month. So don't be shy.
Right.
Don't be shy.
So I'm going to go a really high 4 for this. I'm going to save the 5 for something that maybe will come in the year. But yeah, no, really high 4.
It sounds like in your heart, sure, there's a 5.
Well, it is really, but
I think I'm going to go in actually with the 5, because I like to start with a perfect score, and then I will tend to reduce it by things that maybe niggle me, things that I think, okay, this didn't hit it for me. So I couldn't take anything away from it. I couldn't find that fault to say, actually, it was perfect, but for this. Yeah. I can't find that, but for this thing in that film. So to me, it's going to be a 5.
So Sharon's persuaded me. Well done, Sharon. Thank you very much. You made me feel confident.
Sure. Listen to your heart. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I'm going to do the same, because I was going to go with a 4 and say it was a really solid all-round, but actually I can't think of anything to fault it on. So it's got to be a 5, you're right.
Wow. Okay. Is that a first?
I think that's a first. That's the first film where we've had multiple people give it 5. Like, this is like across the board. There's no, okay, cool. So I'm gonna my aim for the next week is to go watch Nosferatu and give it a 1. So, all right, cool. Now let's go from cinema over to Netflix and Friends, and let's alight on let's go Dune Prophecy. Dune Prophecy. Sharon, Holly, you guys have seen this. This is like from what I can understand, it's a prequel to the Dune movies, based on one of Frank Herbert's book, I think, The Sisterhood of Dune, and it is thousands of years beforehand. It's done the prequel thing.
10,000 years.
10,000 years before Paul, what's his face, actually shows up. So, Holly, what is Dune Prophecy all about? Tell us, give us, apart from that, give us like a brief thing about it, then let's go straight on with.
Dune Prophecy is a 6-part series of reasonably long episodes setting out the origins of the Bene Gesserit, who are the female sort of mystics and guides to royalty, and
to be reductive, they are the Jedi in this world.
They are the Jedi in this world, and though they predate the Jedi, canonically, time-based altogether, and this film sets up the 100 years after the sort of, it was about 100 years, wasn't it, after the fall of world as we know it, where people had risen up against the thinking machines, and they, despise all complex technology in some ways.
Topical.
Topical indeed. And the Bene Gesserit are working to guide the principles upon which they set themselves up as an order and help to shape the future of the universe. The main characters are 2 sisters, whose surname is Harkonnen, which will be familiar to those who have seen the movies and or read the books, and they are leading the Bene Gesserit in their future mission, and connecting this in at the same time with trying to gain some control over a potential future ruler. And I can't really think how to explain much more of it beyond that. So I think, Sharon, you'll need to give some additional detail, because I'll just end up giving it all away.
Yes, but you see the seed sown of like the later, where they were trying to combine the bloodlines of different houses so that they can ultimately control the emperor, I suppose, is because it is like an empire, isn't it? And yes, so you see them even at this early stage, 10,000 years, they're looking to say, okay, if we manipulate these sort of gene pools and create these marriages between these different houses, we can then steer the way that the universe is directed. And you get a lot of the names that will crop up later, like the Atreides, the Harkonnens, and you see the beginning of that, where that rivalry started, this arch rivalry between the 2 houses, how one is seen as the bad guys of the universe and the other one's seen as like this nobility, and how you see how that started and how each they have tried to sort of maybe neither case is quite the truth, that neither one is wholly villainous and wholly heroic.
Oh, they don't try and do the wicked thing and try and make the Harkonnen seem good. No, even the name Harkonnen, it sounds boo, hiss.
No, you can see that they are a deeply flawed house, but maybe they didn't start off that way, that circumstances may have sent them in a direction, and that certain members of that house have taken that direction and run with it, rather than, yes, it's a combination of characteristics and fate.
Okay, Shaun, you have a question.
I was going to ask you: is there much in the way of action in it? Because I'd like that. I know it's a strange question. I mean, much in the way of fighting or like wars and things.
Not big wars, or battles, but there's certainly conflicts and violence on a smaller scale. It's not galactic or sort of armies fighting armies, but there are rebels and factions and.
Oh right, okay, cool.
Yeah, I think to be honest, everything I've seen about this, I mean, it looks like Game of Thrones is a real touchstone, where it's all about, it's made because Game of Thrones had fighting and all that kind of stuff, but it really was all about the scheming. Game of Thrones was about the scheming and about the politics, and it seems like this is Dune politics.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's a fair
people aren't always what you think they are. And people are, they're not always as. There's layers to these characters.
Okay, all right, cool. So, how many stars would you give this one?
I would probably go. I'm thinking probably for me a solid 3. I
Okay.
don't think it would win any fans if you're not already slightly invested in the Dune world. I don't think it would win anyone to that world. But if you're like, if you like that world, it adds an extra layer of interest to it.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think it would win any fans. So for me, it's a solid three.
Yeah. Sorry, Holly?
Yeah, I think the same. I thought it was really well done. It's well constructed. Some of the episodes didn't grab me as much as they might have done. I wasn't quite on the edge of my seat waiting for the next one, but I love Dune the books. I love the films, so it was playing to me as the sort of the target audience.
All right, cool. So that is three stars for Dune Prophecy. Quick question, Holly. So as somebody who says that you love the films and everything like that, Dune Part 1 or Dune Part 2, which one do you think is better?
I Oh, that's a really difficult one.
Okay, you think
Uh,
about it. Think about it, and we'll come back at the end. All right, cool. Now, going back to the cinema thing, can you tell I need to get out of here quickly today? Going back to cinemas and stuff, we are now going to talk about Sonic 3. Now, Sonic 3 is Sonic the Hedgehog Part 3. This is a film that as the title suggests, is the third one in a franchise, Sonic, the Sonic movie franchise. And I'm not even that bothered about what the film's about, given that I just really want to know that how on earth did you watch this film, Sharon? That's what I want to know. I want to know this film has like everything all over it that says Sharon, stay away, and how somehow you ended up in the cinema. How did that happen?
It happened to be my friend's birthday,
I
and
knew
this
it.
was her birthday pick.
I knew it. I knew somebody had to drag you.
Yeah, it was like, we're going to the cinema. Would you like to come? It's my birthday. And I was like, oh, yeah, that'd be great. What are you going to see? Thinking there could be any number of films. It's like Sonic 3. I was just like, oh, my goodness me. I was just like, okay. I said, forewarning, I haven't seen Sonic 1 or 2 and I've never played the game. They said, oh, you're fine. And so please don't ask me to summarize what this film is about.
No, don't worry.
Because I
I'm
think
taking.
there's these primary coloured things running around and then Jim Carrey. That's about it. That's what I took from this thing.
I think that's a fair description. I too had not seen 1 or 2, and this was necessary to achieve 52.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, I'll take this one because Sonic is essentially from my childhood. Sonic and Mario. That is the '80s battle, the '80s video game console battle. Mario and Nintendo, Sonic and Sega. That was the whole thing. Sonic and Hedgehog. He is Sega's Mario, and obviously this is the third film. I've seen all three of them. The first one that I saw, I remember watching it and thinking, well, there was a whole controversy because they'd messed up the design of Sonic beforehand. I remember, Shaun, I think you probably remember that. The whole ugly Sonic thing. Yeah, the whole ugly Sonic thing. Where they had to sort of retool the whole thing, and it looked like it was going to be a disaster. So from where they started, it's actually surprising they've gone to 3 films. The first film is surprisingly heartwarming. It's a little bit Harry and the Hendersons, kind of like, when you had an 80s movie about, like, there's a little bit of E.T. in it, batteries not included, that kind of Amblin type of feel about the first film. And I was really impressed with the first film. I was very much not with the second film. I thought the second film was rubbish. The second film was essentially all my fears of what the first film could be come to light. This one is better than the second film. I don't think it's at the level of the first film. And your summary of it, Sharon, even as somebody who's a fan of video games and everything like that, of the video games that these things are based on, I think is 100% all you need to know if you want to watch this film. There's a whole bunch of bright primary colored looking animals, CGI animals running around, and there's Jim Carrey. I actually think, yeah, that's all you need to know. If that appeals to you, go watch this film. If that does not appeal to you, do not go watch this film, because there's attempts to sort of like put like there's attempts to put a plot in there. I don't really think it's consequential. There are good actors that they put in the film that they waste. I mean, Kristen Ritter is in this film. I went short, I was like, oh my god, Kristen Ritter's in this film. And first thought was, oh, I haven't seen her for a while. And then 2 was like, oh, rubbish. is that where she's gotten to now, that she has to be in a Sonic film because no one else would? I don't understand why, because Kristen Ritter's brilliant, but she just disappears. After a certain point, she disappears. She's no longer there. James Marsden is somebody who I think should be a bigger star than he is, because I think he is brilliant in everything he does. His role in Enchanted is an all-timer. His role in Enchanted is an all-time great role. But he just doesn't seem to have had like anyway, he's in this film. It's thankless. Tika Sumpter is in this film. It's thankless. Essentially, almost every human character in this film, it is thankless, apart from Jim Carrey, who takes on dual roles for some reason as Robotnik and Robotnik's grandpa. Never mind, it doesn't make sense. There's some plot holes in there. That's not the point. It's made for kids. Look at the primary colors. Sonic is gonna run. Yay! Way hey! End of the film. Boom. That's it. Oh, and Keanu Reeves.
You can listen to Idris Elba and Keanu Reeves. Go, who is that? Because I was going through the film going, who is that?
Yes. Yes. You
and
have.
It was like the last quarter of an hour, so I went, is that Keanu Reeves?
Yes, Keanu Reeves is playing Shadow. Idris Elba is playing Knuckles, and I have to admit that some of Idris Elba's line readings as Knuckles I think are hilarious. I think he's obviously having a lot of fun playing Knuckles. But all in all, I think that this, I say better than the second one. I don't think I can give this anything more than 3. I think it sets out to what it for the kids who like Sonic, they will love it. There's a whole thing about an emerald that doesn't make any sense. that just pushes it. But I think it's a 3 and probably around about the low end of a 3. Holly, Sharon, how many stars do you give it?
We'll also give it a 3. I'd say I wouldn't have desperately wanted to see it. I actually thought it was better than a number of other things I've seen over the last month, including things that ought to have been on paper should have been very good. So I thought it was watchable. It did what it said it was going to do, and it did that in a perfectly satisfactory fashion.
To give you a glimpse into the Netflix versus cinema WhatsApp chat, Holly just sent a message going, Sonic 3 is better than Mufasa the Lion King.
It really is.
To which I replied, I could have called that from the word go. Because these are two cynical cash grabs. One of them is a lot more cynical than the other. Let me just put it that way. Sorry, Sharon, how many stars?
I'd go 3 as well, because there are 3 of them. There's the red one, there's the yellow one, and there's the blue one. So I'd just go, they can have a point each.
Oh, Knuckles, Tails, and Sonic. But there's also Shadow. You could give an extra star for Shadow. Could I tempt you?
No, I'm not that generous.
I'm just
share it with the others.
As I said earlier, that the only way I can imagine Sharon would have been dragged to see this film is if Mads Mikkelsen was in it, and this was the only film he was going to be in the next 2 years. I would love it if they cast Mads Mikkelsen as the voice of a new hedgehog in Sonic the Hedgehog.
Okay, I'm in.
In Sonic the Hedgehog 4, which has been announced, they are going to make a 4th film. Oh my God, that was an epic eye roll. That was just like multiple eye rolls all around my Zoom screen. The whole screen eye rolled. All right.
Looking at the eyes of a snake on Jungle Book, which is probably one of the few animated films I have seen.
Yeah. All right, cool. I just realized, Shaun, there's nothing else that you've seen that we're talking about now.
No, there isn't. No, there's nothing. That's okay. But I could mention about the Mufasa thing.
Okay. So I've put Mufasa on the chopping block.
Well, yeah.
Probably quite literally for next week.
Okay.
But say what you need to say about it quickly.
No, that's all right. As I say, I was sort of persuaded to come and see it, and bearing in mind I've never seen the original Lion King, so
and see the 1994 version.
Just to say, I had no idea who was who.
Anyway. I'm not sure that presents a problem.
Okay. We'll keep that for next week.
No,
we'll keep what I think is going to be a Mufasa the Lion King kick-in for next week. All right, cool. And now let's go over to Blitz. Let's go talk Blitz on Apple TV Plus. So Sharon, tell us about Blitz.
Yeah, Blitz is a film set in the Second World War and the beginning of the Second World War, and it centres on this young lad who lives with his mum and granddad. His mum played by Saoirse Ronan, his granddad played by Paul Weller, and they have at the very early stage of the war, like September 1939, they were worried about what was going to happen in London. So a lot of the children were evacuated to the country and they were put in foster families. And so Sharon decided that she didn't want to part with her little boy at that point, and she was prepared to sort of have him with her. And the part of London, they missed the worst of the Blitz in sort of like mid 1940, so the beginning of 1941 now. And then the bombing has started again, and it's getting closer to their part of London. And she decides that now is the time, she's actually going to give in, and she's going to evacuate her little boy. He doesn't want to go. So he is evacuated as per the plan, and he gets put on the train, and he has his label on, and he's been told, stay in this part of the train and you'll be taken to your new home, will be allocated to you when you get to where you're going. And he's like, I'm not going. So he waits until the train basically slows down to go through a tunnel, and then he jumps off the train. And then you have this Dickensian odyssey almost, where he basically tries to find his way home. And he encounters along the way these different group of characters who sort of take him on to this next part of the story. So you have a little group of little boys who you think of almost like like the Artful Dodger and his little mate. Yeah. And they have a little adventure with them. And then you have where he meets this really benevolent, I was thinking of like Ham from David Copperfield, who sort of really takes him on board and helps him on to the next bit. And then you meet like a sort of Bill Sykes, Fagin, Nancy group, who show him like the darker sides of London during the war. And so you have at each stage, you have these different characters that progresses him on his journey, but he opens his eyes to what life is like in wartime London. And so you follow this little journey with this little lad as he tries to get home. And while he's doing this journey, you see how the war is affecting his mum and his granddad in the way that their lives are living, as working in the factories, as doing war work, but not in uniform, but just doing munitions work. And her granddad, like trying to keep the family entertained, so down the pub with an old sort of sing along by the old Joanna.
Always one of them in the old
you see this sort of this richness and this the complexity of what life was like in wartime London through the eyes of this lad and his family.
All right, cool. So thanks, Sharon. This is directed by Steve McQueen, known for 12 Years a Slave. He did the Small Axe series on BBC, and I know that for me anyway, one of the things that stood out when I first saw the poster for this film is that the little boy who I think his name is George, his mom is Saoirse Ronan, but he obviously has a black father. And so with this being Steve McQueen and everything like that,
his dad was like a musician, and they sort of fell in love, and she got pregnant, but they were separated before they could get married.
Yeah, but it looks like that's actually addressed in the film, like almost like that. There were black people in London during World War II.
I think it is based on a very famous picture. You see this picture of the children being evacuated, and there is a picture of this little sort of dual heritage boy, because he has been led by the hand by one of the sort of WVS women, and he's got his label around his neck and his little bag, being led through the train station. And so you obviously sort of Steve McQueen saw this image and thought, there's sort of black children were involved in this as well. Yeah. Or dual heritage children who you don't know what their background is, but you think it wasn't just the little sort of normal image of what you expect to be from the children who were evacuated.
Yeah, because I think it's one of those areas that obviously there's a lot of World War II stories that are told and everything like that, but it's an area that doesn't really get covered that much. Then that's the thing that intrigued me. Although not enough for me to actually watch the film, even though I've had it on Apple TV just sitting there staring at me. But anyway, you are the one who actually has some diligence about this. So how many stars would you give Blitz?
No, I really liked it, actually. I thought, to me, it was just Dickensian. It just, the characters, the way some of them were like really broad, and some of them were sort of comic, and others were tragic. I just really quite liked this sort of broad, some of these like the broad strokes of it. But and I thought the lad who played sort of George was really well done. Some child actors just, couldn't cause diabetes, couldn't they? Really, they're just so sickly that you think, oh, please go away. But no, I thought he did it really well. So for me, it was 4. It was 4-star.
You see, I'm happy with the sort of the sickly sweet diabetes causing child actors. I cannot stand the wooden ones. the wooden ones where they're like, oh, they look cute. Oh my god, they can't act for toffee. They kind of like
I don't believe a word you're saying, but yeah,
It's-
you're him. You're invested in him, and what he goes through. Yeah, you really do feel for him.
Okay, cool. And now back to cinema and stuff, and we are now going to talk about Robbie Williams as a chimp. Robbie Williams as a chimp in the film Better Man. Now, I think only Holly and I have seen this. Only have seen this. And as I could tell from Sharon's quizzical look, like, what? And so...
Because this was the one my friend wanted to go and see as her birthday film, but the timings weren't right, and I don't think it was quite released in time. And then we've literally been, the last 2 weeks, we've been saying, what about this day? It's like, well, I'm at work. What about this day? Well, no, I'm at work. Then what about... So we've actually been trying to get to see this, but neither of us have made it yet.
Oh, actually, a quick question. If your friend whose birthday it was, what did they think about Sonic the Hedgehog 3?
They've seen both the others, and Gemma's husband Ian, he's huge. He's the same age.
It was Gemma. It was Gemma.
Gemma and Ian. And they tried, and Ian tried to explain to me what was going on, but it didn't help. But no, they enjoyed it. They said not as good as the first one, but they enjoyed it because they thought some of the characters are right, but some things are wrong. So I was told exactly what was wrong, and it meant nothing to me at all. But no, they on the whole, I think they enjoyed it. But they did. They agreed it wasn't as good as the first one.
Okay, you know, when you were telling me about the whole thing, I was thinking that this would be Gemma. It does sound like a Gemma story that would end up with you watching on, especially with Ian. Actually, I blame him. I blame him for dragging her down. But okay, cool. So now let's go. Holly, do you want to give us a quick thing about Better Man? By the way, you would have had a much better time with Better Man. I would say that.
Well, I think you ought to give the description, really, as you haven't had to do one yet.
I haven't? No. Oh, good God. No, I haven't. All right, cool. So, Better Man. Better Man, this is essentially a music biopic like you have never seen a music biopic before. This is a story of Robbie Williams. Robbie Williams, who was in the group called Take That, which was massive in the UK and across Europe, and I think probably... I feel that almost a lot of boy bands are massive in Japan, but not so much in America. And Robbie Williams was the first member to leave Take That, and he has had by far the most impressive solo career out of everybody in Take That. He has been the one he's the star. He's the star of it. And this is essentially a biopic of him that is directed by Michael Gracie. Oh, sorry, I forgot to start the timer. It's directed by Michael Gracie, who did the Greatest Showman. And it's based on, he was interviewing Robbie Williams, and Robbie Williams is quite an open book, and he's also quite, in the words of Michael Gracie, an oversharer. So Robbie Williams would tell you everything that happened, who it happened with, how it happened, who he slept with, who he got, Sharon, pardon the term, wanked off in a corridor by, all that kind of stuff. And Robbie Williams would tell you all this stuff. And so Michael Gracie was like, okay, cool. So he's started thinking, there's actually like a real story in here that isn't just kind of like in your typical rags to riches A, B, C, D biopic. And then they decided to, instead of having an actor play Robbie Williams is he's played by a CGI chimpanzee in this film. And it is weird because, number one, it immediately makes you go, okay, what is this film? And number two, it works. It really, really works. And I've been trying to figure it's the kind of film that makes you start going philosophical. You're kind of going, hang on a second, why the heck does this work? Why the heck does a film with a chimpanzee in the middle of it? Why does a scene between a chimpanzee and his human grandma, played by Alison Steadman, make me feel emotional? Well, and I think it's probably because you're not worried about, has this chimp captured Robbie Williams, or how much does this actor look like him? Has he got the voice or anything like that?
Because it does have the voice. Because it's his voice.
It is his voice. It is Robbie Williams' voice. It is not even that. It is Robbie Williams' eyes, because they scanned his eyes and they put his eyes in the chimp's head, which all sounds very Frankenstein, but it works. And I think it's a musical because it has all of his songs in it and everything like that. I think it works as a musical because I remember the first song that comes on, I think it might have been Feel, but the way it is incorporated into the film, I remember watching it going, oh, that works. And even with one of my big complaints with musicals recently, especially, I think I mentioned this with Moana too, is when you have a song and the song doesn't move the story along, where the story more or less stops to do song, and then the story carries on from exactly where you were before the song came in. And this does not do that. Every single song moves the story along. Every single song moves the character emotionally along. And I think one of the big things about this that sets it apart from a lot of other music biopics for me is the fact that you get to figure out what's going on in his head at each time. And you get to figure out from the very beginning, he tells you, this is what my motivation is. This is what I want to do. This is what my relationship with my father is like. This is why I'm trying to get. This is what I'm trying to go with. And I think that extra thing of what's actually going on in his head throughout the whole time, while all this other stuff was going on, was a bit revelatory to me, especially because I lived through a lot of these things. His appearance on Parkinson, I remember watching that live. I remember watching his appearance on Parkinson live. I remember that there was, when he played Nebworth, there's this line he says at the beginning of his set in Nebworth, he's like, "Hi, I'm Robbie Williams, and for the next 2 hours, your ass is mine!" I remember watching that on TV and going, and that was the moment I thought, my God, he's a showman. This guy has got it. He's next level about him. And then when the film shows you what was going on behind the scenes through all these moments that I remember, I'm like, oh wow, it just elevated it to another level to other music biopics. There are all these other things that happen in music biopics, like the rise to fame, the descent into drugs, the stint in rehab, all those things are there. But this time round, it feels like it's given a different, like, I'm not sure whether it's just because it's the chimp makes you feel as if this is something we haven't seen before. But I think also just the peek inside his inner world as to this is what was going on with him. And and when they play Angels, the way they use the song Angels in the film, it is a gut punch. It is a gut punch.
That's my most irritating. Angels, as a rule of thumb, I find the most irritating song in the entire world.
I love that song.
That has changed my position on it. I didn't think anything could do that because I still stand by the fact it's one of the most overplayed songs ever. Yeah. But it worked. It worked so well. It was. I'm fairly sure I cried, and I did not expect to cry at a film with a CGI chimp in it.
Yep.
I thought it was beautifully done. It was so well put together. It was so interesting. It did make you really see what an extraordinary showman he is.
Yeah.
And what a very, how gifted he is and how he's battled with his own demons.
Yeah.
In a hugely human way. And the way they depicted all of these things was particularly those sort of internal battles was so cleverly done.
I thought the internal battles thing was, there's this motif where you have the previous versions of him that you've seen throughout the film. Like when he's on stage and he's performing, his biggest critic are his previous versions look at him going, well, you're not up to much, are you? And the way they do that is just, it's sorry, Holly, I interrupted.
Yeah, but exactly that. It's this absolutely compelling battle with himself, telling himself that he's not good enough.
Yeah.
And having to work through that. And it's spectacular.
Yeah.
I don't think there's another word for it other than spectacular, because it is a spectacle.
Yeah, and there is another film that is a sequence in this that I will recall the Strictly Come Dancing sequence. Holly, you probably can think. It's the Strictly Come Dancing sequence. Sharon, I think you'll like it. Essentially, Better Man, I think you would. Even Shaun, I think you would like this film as well.
Yeah, I was quite intrigued with it. But I think it's like with Sharon, the times never really, because I did actually plan on going to see it because it did look quite interesting. I mean, I agree with Holly with Angels, and I like some of Robbie Williams stuff, but I guess I was never like a, well, I mean, it was not of my era really, so I wasn't, like, take that. But having said that, I do like some of the stuff, and I watched, because I really like the take that one called Could It Be Magic, and
What, the song?
Yeah, he sings on that one, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think Shaun's just frozen. Shaun's just frozen on my screen. All right, cool. Yeah. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it's a very good film. It is a very, very good film.
And not just because it's the music of our youth. I mean, it is the music of our youth.
Yeah, I remember because I remember when Angels came out. I remember it would have been 1997. Because in 97 or 98, I remember being a prefect in school and being in the prefect's room and that being on the radio, that kind of thing. So it is my childhood, but it did remind me how many how many bangers I think Robbie Williams has. He has written some really, really good songs.
Yeah.
Has written some really good songs.
Shaun, you got cut off in your prime there, but you're
Yes.
back.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what happened there. I thought, what's going on? You all froze. So and I prattled on. Could you still hear me? But you all froze.
No. You stopped.
that's
You
right.
stopped. You stopped. I think the last thing you said was, you were talking about
Could It Be
Take
Magic?
That song. Yeah, Could It Be Magic?
Could it be magic? Yeah, it was like a Children in Need thing with Barry Manilow singing it slow, and then Gary Barlow and Robbie
his
Williams come
backing
on.
dancers.
It's brilliant. It was really good. So maybe I need to see that. Is there anything to do with Take That in it with like the other?
Oh no, yeah. Take That play a big part of the thing.
Right,
Take,
okay.
like
It's his whole life going
There was
back
that
to his
movie, wasn't
child.
there, with the girl that lost her
Greatest Days.
I went and saw it with you, Sharon, I think.
Yes, that's right. We saw it about using the music from Take That.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's but I think go see this. It's really, really good. It's a surprise. It's a real big surprise.
I'll make a point of trying to get to see it.
I would give it a 4 out of 5. Holly?
I'm going 5.
Okay, cool.
Wow.
Good stuff. I think it genuinely. I know, Shaun, we had a talk about. I hadn't seen this film by the time when we talk, and we're talking about how we couldn't really think of films that stood out last year.
Yeah.
It genuinely is one of the films of 2024.
Cool, brilliant.
It genuinely is. All right, cool. And now let's go into the final thing we're going to talk about this week, or I'm going to talk about because I don't think anybody else has seen this. Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Fowl. Sorry, Shaun, look at your box.
I was going to say I didn't see it, but it's funny enough. I went for a cuppa with Happy John and Joe for tonight like that, and they were talking about and saying there's just so many movie references in it that that's what they told me, and I was like, oh, maybe I should see it.
Oh no! So Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Fowl. For those of there must be some people who do not know who Wallace and Gromit are. Wallace and Gromit are created by Nick Park, who has a stop motion studio called Aardman out of Bristol in the UK, and their most famous creations are Wallace and Gromit. Wallace, who is a Yorkshire inventor, with his dog Gromit, who is the silent character to end all silent characters, doesn't say a word but has the most expressive eyebrows in the business. You always know exactly what Gromit is thinking. So in this story, Wallace has gone to this point where he's gone a bit Tony Stark, in that he's just inventing and inventing and inventing. He's invented so many things that Gromit worries that, and this is the thing, right? I'm about to say what Gromit is thinking or what Gromit's arc is in this thing without him ever saying a word. Gromit worries that Wallace is beginning to get disconnected from human connection. So it's like so to the point where when he's going to pat Gromit, he has a machine that does the patting for him. So Gromit takes solace in his garden. Wallace goes, no, what? We're going to build a gnome that can do all your gardening for you. And while he's doing all this, there is a character called Feathers McGraw, who is a penguin who shows up all the way back in A Close Shave, which is like a 20-30-year-old Wallace and Gromit short. And Feathers McGraw comes back, and this is one of the first film references you have in this. The first time you see Feathers McGraw in this, he's doing pull-ups in jail. With and there's he's doing pull-ups in jail, very Cape Fear, very Max Cady. There's lightning outside the window, everything like that. But because he's a penguin, his jail is the zoo. So what happens? There comes to this whole thing where Feathers McGraw figures out a way to get out of jail and at the same time frame Wallace, because Wallace and Gromit are the ones who got him into jail in the first place. So to frame Wallace, and so it becomes this whole story about revenge and how he's going to get out. He's going to put Wallace in, and how Wallace is in trouble with the police and what's going to happen, and I just think it's one of the best things about Wallace and Gromit is the inventiveness, the invention on the show. They have a chase. They have a high-speed chase, or a high-speed chase in inverted commas. It's done with canal boats. They have a canal boat chase going on there. And as usual with all this Aardman stuff, there's all these things in the background you've got to watch for. Like there's a bit where they get to the Yorkshire-Lancashire border, and there's a sign that says, "Welcome to Yorkshire, keep out." And on the opposite side, it's a blink and you miss it. Most people will not even notice this. On the opposite side of this sign, it says, "Welcome to Lancashire. No, you keep out." and it's things, and I think it's just brilliant. I mean, it's Peter Sallis, who did the voice of Wallace, died, and so they have someone who's coming, Ben Whitehead, who's doing the voice of Wallace, and it's seamless. You don't really notice. Like, they have cast so well with that voice, and I think that's about all I can really say, because I don't really want to start trying to sort of like relive all the different set pieces you have in the film and what happens or what goes on. Peter Kay shows up as a policeman which was a policeman who has previously been in Wallace and Gromit that I do not remember. There's like little cameos. There's like a Shaun the Sheep type cameo in there that I was like, ha ha ha, and I laughed at it, and most people didn't get that it was a Shaun the Sheep cameo. But I think it was really, really good. I think that it keeps up Wallace and Gromit's high hit rate. I'll give it a 4 out of 5, and I would say, yeah, it's only about 75 minutes. So have at it. Enjoy it. Wallace and Gromit, it was one of the best things I saw over Christmas. And that is it. That is us done. Almost in time, Justin. So the last thing I have to ask you guys is, who do you think for our first thing of the year? Who do you think has won this week? Has it been a Netflix week or has it been a cinema week?
I think we've got to go cinema, haven't we? With
Cinema.
across the board.
Came out swinging into the new year, I think.
Yep. I actually want to go back and look at this. I have a feeling that cinema might win most Januaries, quite frankly.
Yeah. You'd be surprised.
I think we had like Zone of Interest last year, and like Poor Things, and was it American Fiction
and the Holdovers.
Yeah, we did.
Holdovers. There was quite a lot. All went early on.
Yeah. I think quality wise, January is a bit heavy loaded. Like the fact that you already have what 3 films to go see this week, Holly?
Yep, and 2 down already that have come out this year. So
all right, cool, good stuff. So yeah, it is cinema. By the way, it is cinema with an average of 4.16, and what's the name? Those are the guys. Netflix. They have a 3.66. However, it's one of those weeks where we didn't have anything below a 3.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah, we didn't have anything below a 3. So the winners are us. The magic was in us all along. All right, cool. So until next week, because we've had so many things over Christmas, I can tell you what we're going to be talking about next week already. Next week, we're going to have We Live in Time. We have Mufasa the Lion King. We have Night Bitch next week. We have The Diplomat Season 2. We have Missing You. And yeah, so until next week when we talk about all those things, it is a goodbye from me.
that's a goodbye from me.
Bye for me.
bye from me.
Thank you ever so much for joining us. Cool, and we're out.
That made me feel better, actually.